Alrighty guys, welcome to yet another video. My face is very overlit. I have my kind of a night lamp next to me, and it's pretty late here in Finland. I just came home from a tournament, and I made it to the finals. And because of a whiff of approximately 1 in 1,000, I did not win the tournament, which is something that I'm currently biting the bullet a bit for, but bad beats sometimes. But knowing that the deck performed well, I performed well, is something that's very nice. First of all, I guess the first thing to notice, the good energy that I brought with me today was thanks to my partner's lovely birthday presents, which is a t-shirt of our cat, as well as I want to showcase this beautiful playmat, which has everything and anything that just is me and is kind like me. Our cat's on the, I guess if you're watching this on the bottom right. Oh yeah, it should be like it's mirrored, I guess. Well, yeah, it's on the bottom right. But yes. Oh, now it's weird. Now the like lighting is off again. Oh well, anyway. This video is a bit of a tournament report. For the tournament, I'll walk through the rounds that I played in and just kind of explain what happened there, and also what the 99 I brought to the tournament, or rather 100, if you're new to here, but you'll get an idea on what I settled on, and so on and so forth. As you can see, a lot of boxes behind me. We're moving in a week, so a bit of a preparation amidst all of this. So I guess we can hop into the stuff. Actually, let me just check if I have the photos ready. Yes, there we go. So to start things off, what list did I settle on, or what changes? The biggest, the newest change for this current build was basically cutting Samwise for Lotus Cobra. And the reason I did this was basically just wanting to have a more consistent card where Samwise is still in the testing process for me. And Lotus Cobra is like one of the, I think, the best next mana bank to add to the list. Lotus Cobra is quite equivalent to Gaia's Touch, but they have their own upsides for each of them. Like, there's like, I did some, started doing some tracking on what scenarios Lotus, like how often would Lotus Cobra be better, how often Gaia's Touch would be better, but in the end it kind of just looked to me as like both of them would be really good. And I was like, if both of them are good, I should probably play them both. I really wanted to fit in Thornvolt Forager as well. I have been on this card before. I think this one is a very interesting card because it's very, very unconventional. It's good with LED, but the biggest thing with this card is that it usually requires a combination of a fetch land, and maybe Mana Vault, Mox Diamond, I mean, or a Lotus Petal. Crop Rotation is one of the best cards for this because it allows you to essentially fulfill the requirement in one card, because you sacrifice a land as an additional cost, Crop Rotation hits the bin, and then you can find a fetch land which you can then crack and get to the bin. The bad thing about that, though, is that if you're doing that, you're not fetching, for example, like Cavern of Souls or something out. For ramping purposes, you could get Crystal Vein, which is like good, but you're still using the crop rotation a little differently. The other upside of this, which was not fulfilled for the list, at least currently, I did not play this in the 100, but Omni Changeling is the other card, And I think as a package, I like both of these quite a lot. Since this is all creature types, you could activate the Thornwald Forager and find this card, and then you could just play this card, and usually for free. So if your turn would look like something where you go Thornwald Forager, then you start chaining with Aang, and in the case you kind of whiff or whatever, I guess you could find a delayed effect or, a doubler for next turn. But then next turn, if you have access to the mana, you could then activate Forager and essentially get yourself a 4-mana Omni-Changeling because of the activation cost. The one thing that this card does similar to Lotus Cobra is that it fixes your colors, which is something different from Gaia's Touch, for example, and Devoted Druid. The thing about all of these is, though, that essentially they're looking to function similarly to a 2-mana investment for a 2-mana return. And this is basically what I really want from this list, is that usually the hands you'd want to keep are 2 or more mana on turn 1. If you're keeping a hand which doesn't do that, your hand usually needs to do something that's more resilient, or plays the LED turn 2 and casts Aang that way. But generally, like the two kind of avenues you want to go about things is ending up with a turn 2 Aang, and the way you can get there is either a mana bank on turn 1 and then casting Aang on turn 2, or LED, go for Aang. Mana Vault works similarly. Sometimes starts with Soul Ring and something else, but you get the idea, I guess. Sticker sheet, no surprise there, was relevant against Ral in the finals, but did not see the sticker goblin at all. But that was pretty much the only change I did for today. Some newer cards like Tezzeret has fulfilled its purpose very, very well. This card fixes you both scenarios mana-wise, which is either when you have a lot of colorless mana, but you don't have colors, and in those cases you would generally go for cast Tezzeret, find a Chromox or Mox Diamond, or, well, pretty much those two, and then on the next turn you can tap it for a mana, untap it, tap it for a mana, use your Ancient Tome for whatever, play a land drop, cast Aang. Planar Guide is a fantastic card. It lines up with a game plan really, really well. It's an ability that you can activate, and I will soon explain how this was relevant in the tournament and how it, in 99.9% of the scenarios, it would have won me the game. Anyway, other than that, something that I considered cutting was Renegade Doppelganger. When I was trying to fit in the Thornwald Forager, the other options for that slot was kind of between Gaia's Touch and Season of Growth, but then on the other hand, I was like, Gaia's Touch it's just a strong card, because it's the mana production is always online. While you can't always cast it, but still, like Thornwald Forager, in more cases, more often it is not online compared to how often it is online. And something that I also kind of think about when thinking about the Forager is that it's best with LED. If you have access to Diamond Lion, you'd play the Diamond Lion first, and then you won't have access to a non-summoning sick Forager. LED lets you go for the Forager Forage, which would let you get 2 colored mana in any combination, but then again, you would have an LED hand, which usually should be good enough without the Forager, if that makes sense. The only differences here is if you have access to, say, Elvish Spirit Guide. No, not that one, sorry. If you have Ancient Tomb and like a soul land, you have a colorless land, and then you have one of these colored one-time use fast mana effects. Lotus Petal, Elvish Spirit Guide, Chancellor. And if you'd have Chromox and stuff, then like depends a bit, but if you have those scenarios, then it doesn't really matter if you forage or not, you would get the extra color there. Also, if you have, well, you get the idea. Like, it turns soul lands into colored lands pretty efficiently, and that's a good thing. And the other thing was like, Doppelganger still, it's really good. Like, if you play this before Aang and you cast Aang, it very often converts to a win, simply because you get to kind of forego the requirement of finding Gigantoplasm, which is usually the bottleneck for the deck. Now with Salvation Swan, you have other options as well, and sometimes Planar Guide, but still it's like, it's a hard card to evaluate. I guess the best way, if somebody were to do this, maybe me, myself at some point, but if you would have the data on how often this deck wins in its current form, you would track it, how many chains, like without Doppelganger out, how often does it win, and then you could look at like how often does it win with the Doppelganger out, and you would then come to this kind of a evaluation where you know how beneficial it is in practice. Overall, I was really happy with the list. I think like I put so much thought and so many hours into this. I'm really happy that there's over 7,000 views on this, and the amount of likes in contrast to the amount of views is massive for this deck. Like, it brings me great joy that people find this project interesting, and I've found it very interesting. I've built like a Rograk Thrasios was probably a deck that I've been the most on for like historically. Shorika is another one, but like I've played pretty much all the decks, and Rogue Thras was one of those decks that I think had a lot of improvement to be done. Like before, when the Cradle variant started seeing play, like I was like, Deserted Temple should be in these lists, and soon enough Sam Black played Deserted Temple, and like then the archetype like just evolved from that. I probably wasn't the first one to think of that idea, but still, many lists online, they just didn't play it, and to me it felt wrong. Anyway, would I change anything in the list? Not really. The considerations that I've been wanting to do is seeing like if and how impactful adding one land in place of something else would be. And this, I think, at least from like a heuristic point of view, the number would actually be very insignificant. I did some tests where I looked at how often the hand would be great with an extra land and how often it would not matter. And overall, I think it was like 17.5% of the hands, so a sixth or whatever, would be like good with an extra land. Usually these hands were in the vein of like one land LED, and you don't have access to the second land drop. Mox Diamond and something, and you're lacking, a land similar to the LED scenario, but you would have access to that. These kind of things. But then in the grand scheme of like when you look at this all in a big picture is how often would it, like during actual mulligans, how important would it be? Like, what would the amount of hands across through your mulligans change for the better if you're on one extra land? And this would mean that you're off another card, but like just some food for thought. Like, I think when we look at, like, somebody talks like 26 feels like the right spot, 25 lands, you know, some RAL decks playing what 14 lands. I can't remember how many I was on. Obviously, it's a different kind of a deck, but still, you know, the mulligans in this format are so, so good. You have so strong mulligans. You have a free mulligan, you have information beforehand, and because you have access to your commander or commanders, you have like extra cards in hand, and also the fact that the power level of the format is so strong. So like the actual mass of cards that you have access to doesn't really matter as much compared to how much weight the cards and actions you do pull. Like in the example of Aang, a 3-card hand can be, quote, perfect. Like if you have a Cavern and LED and whatever mana source, maybe second land, maybe a fast mana source, you just do exactly what you want to. Obviously, more cards in hand is better in a vacuum. Sometimes going down on a lower mulligan means that your opponents aren't as threatened by you. They don't expect you to, you know, play the sandbagged LED, for example, these kind of things. Then another thing to consider is, let me just close that, I guess. There we go. About the lands is like, how often would it like actually make a difference? But that's something to just, you know, look at sometimes. But we at least know that there are hands which would really want an additional land. But also, on the other hand, like if with the current tests, over half of the sets of mulligans. So for each game, if you're exclusively hunting for a turn 2 or occasionally like turn 1 Aang, it's over half of the whole set of mulligans that you will see. Like not half of the hands you see, but rather you would have, if you keep going down to 3, you would have a 54% chance to see a hand that casts turn 2 Aang. Which, like, probabilities wise, is okay, I think, because this does not exclude hands where you have a slower development, you have a more resilient plan, and that kind of stuff. Cards. I did not get to do Broodmoth combos. I did not get to do Salvation Swan combos. Gigantoplasm End State I did get to do. What else? Didn't see Renegade Doppelganger. Brennard I did, I think. Yes. And Planar Guide I did as well. Now for the actual hands and games, I guess we can... to just mention, like Season of Growth was one of the considerations for the Forager slot. I mentioned this earlier, but just that it's a weaker effect than Cream of the Crop. But still, like I feel like the least often, like very often out of the chains, you get to produce infinite flickers. This is something that I could simulate and just see how often it actually gets you there. Food chain, it's been overperforming. I had it cut for just like a test slot for the serum powder, but soon enough, like I just wanted to add it back in. Partially because of Redemption Choir being able to turn, you know, an online Redemption Choir where you had your LED discard your food chain or something, bring that one back, and then you get to produce 80 million mana and just cast Aang over and over again. But yeah, that's it. Like, I would say a pretty stock list for what I do. And 23 with the one MDFC. About the lands, actually, one thing that I was considering before Lotus Cobra, I did max out on the fetch lands when I was on Lotus Cobra and I was testing the Forager. Now the biggest consideration was whether I would want to run Rainbow lands or the fetch lands. And this is an interesting thing where Rainbow lands are more consistent. As I'm only running the 3 fetchables, so 2 for each color. Sometimes you might end up in scenarios where you don't have access to a fetchable land. Now, the other thing to consider here is that usually you're okay with 2 lands. 3, sure, but very rarely you want your games to go to the point where you're just hitting land drops and passing turn. That's not really what you want to do, especially if you've already cast Aang. Usually you don't have to cast spells anymore. That's what we're aiming for. But the fetch lands, even without those payoffs for the actual land drops or filling your grave, one major thing about them is them shuffling your deck, and this in conjunction with how aggressive you want to mulligan. Like, the deck doesn't really keep first sevens that often compared to many other lists where you could go like, oh, I have a critical mass of like I have some lands, I have efficient engines, I have some interaction, like, sure, that's okay. Maybe it's not a winning hand, but for the major part, those are playable hands. Now, this list, on the other hand, even with the whole set of mulligans being consistent, individual hands aren't that consistent. Like, you have hands that are absolutely unplayable compared to some lists which are like higher on the land count, higher on value engines, higher on tutors or whatever. You could go like, okay, this one has, 4 lands, a vampiric tutor, and you could still be like, hey, that's okay. I'll play my land drop vamp tutor instead for Rhystic, Ancient Tomb Rhystic. Okay. Alternatively, Mana Vault, and then you play or whatever Chrome, or I don't know. But still, you get the idea. The card quality in this list is bad in like itself. The cards don't do very much if you don't get them through Aang. And this puts a higher dependency on the commander, obviously, but still, while I highlight the LED-centric gameplay, LED is the best ramp spell, but often, like, none of my hands today were LED hands. And still many of them were very good. And this is something that I've been kind of explaining in the Discord server, at least, is that even though this deck is a turbo deck and tries to play Aang fast, it doesn't mean that you exclude yourself from playing the slower, more development-centric play. Obviously, it's not as consistent with that game plan because you don't have that many lands. If you had like 5 more lands, you had 4 more dorks, you had a cradle, whatever. Obviously, you would be much better at playing, okay, land drop pass, land drop play a dork pass, and this kind of stuff. But this would also mean that you need to be on more interaction. This would mean that you would have to be on more card draw spells, and then we end up in the scenario which I've talked before, which is, why are you then playing Aang, which doesn't play to the strengths of Aang? And just as a thought, why not play Yoshimaru Thrasios? Why not play other banned options or banned plus options? Like, this deck is very unique and wants to do its own thing. And I think this build that I've created, which has performed well for others as well, and well for me, just plays to the strengths of Aang. First round, I guess we'll go here. First round was Magda seat 1, Kinnan seat 2, me on 3, and Sisei on 4. When looking at the pod, I know this is a player who plays Magda a lot. I knew there was at least more recently active Kinnan, and the Sisei player has been playing a lot and has performed well. So I'm sitting pretty okay in the pod. Kinnan doesn't have that much of while it has counter spells, it doesn't have Pyroblast, Red Blast. The biggest things I was wanting to play around here was like Vexing Bauble from Magda, and just keeping some form of a either super fast hand, or just seeing a good, more resilient hand, which lets me play Aang at a steady pace because I expect the game to not be over in a couple of turns, and I'm just looking to build a board where I play Aang and I'm pretty good with it. Alternatively, send it turn 1 before anything else happens, and that's pretty much it. I didn't take photos of my starting hands, but this hand was like Delighted Halfling, 2 lands, some clones, Aang, Pented Prism actually. Yeah, Pented Prism. And my game plan was pretty much Delighted Halfling turn 1, Pented Prism turn 2, and then Aang on 3. However, Magda starts the game, plays a Survivor's Encampment or whatever tap creature to make mana, Sol Ring into Torpor Orb. I was honestly too lazy to even start politicking about it. I know the player knew that's their all right game plan. It doesn't really stop Ceesay, it doesn't really stop Kinnan, but it hoses me, so I understand. It resolved. I'm like, okay, that sounds like pretty much my last tournament's pod one, which was a 3-person pod with Etalia, and yeah. And I still tried to win in that game as well. No, well, anyway. I played the Delighted Halfling, then I played the Pented Prism, and I drew into a Mana Vault, I think. Magda just... Kinnan plays like a Dork turn 1, then Mrs. Landrop plays Mystic Remora, something like that. And I'm like, okay, seems like they've kept the hand which is like all gas and just needs a land. Ceesay plays a Sol Ring, I think, and just passes something like this. And then Magda plays Peter Parker's Camera, a Go-Go or whatever that becomes a copy but maintains its name. So now Magda is at 4 or 5 treasures, I can't remember. And I'm like, yeah, we're about to lose. Well, at this stage, I'm like, I'm just saying to the pod that this is something that we won't be able to stop. This is something that we can't win. And Kinnan is, we end up in this discussion where I just mentioned that I'm okay with attempting to win on my turn. If I manage to win there, I'm okay to shake hands for a draw. And this would mean that we try to get rid of the Torpor Orb collectively and try to force the draw. Kinnan, I think Kinnan was a little hesitant at first or something, or maybe one turn cycle later. But anyway, we ended up in this dynamic. Yeah, we were okay with this plan. I cast Aang, and lo and behold, my first important flip of the tournament was a whiff. I found Loyal Retainers, Elvish Spirit Guides, something like this. So I just put Loyal Retainers and was like, okay, can anyone kill my Aang? Okay. They can't. Pass turn. Ceesay then untaps, plays land, so they only have access to 4 mana, 2 lands and Sol Ring. And I know this is my time to open up my mouth and just say some important words, like, we are going to lose to Magda. Do you have some interaction? And noteworthy, if you have the interaction, Kinnan has 7 cards in hand, 30 mana on the table. Well, not, but 10. And I'm like, we haven't seen really the game plan from his hand, or from their hand. We only have the Mystic Remora information, and they missed the land drop. And if that means that they haven't yet shown anything, it's highly likely that, we're going to see a win on their turn. So I tell this to the players. Ceesay is on board because Ceesay is out of the game. And now they're facing a decision where either Magda wins or Kinnan wins, pretty much. I ask them if they want to show me their hand, and we can talk or just plan the perfect moment together because I'm out of the game. And yeah, they show me their card, which was an Ertai and also Spider Sense, and only had 1 mana for 1, but Ertai stops both. Kinnan is a little hesitant at first, but then I'm just like, I see through you. If this is I know they should. There was a reason why they tunneled on that hand, which gives a lot of information. If you miss your land drop and stuff like that, you know the hand needs to have something, especially as like second 7 or whatever it was, maybe 6, I can't remember, but still it wasn't like a hellbent mulligan. It was a pretty early keep. So it's obvious that they still have the gas in hand, and if they're saying that they can't stop Magda, that means that they're just going to win. And first they were a little hesitant against this. Magda was saying like, I'm calling your bluff, and I'm like, it's not a bluff. I swear with my heart on my hand on my heart that this is not a bluff. But like, you do you. And then they start like, they don't quite understand why would not Cisse just stop the Magda then, which is something that Kinnan asks. And like, I just explained that if Cisse is going to lose to either of these two people, what is it in Cisse's interest to just stop the Magda? So then Kinnan finally agrees that if one of them puts a win on the stack, or rather if they get to put a win on the stack, we would draw. Okay. We ask Magda, do you want to go for lunch already, or do you want to play it out? Like, you're not able to win through it. Wants to try, does not do that. Kinnan plays a buzz out, we end in a draw. Turned an impossible game for me into a win. Also, I was quite careful with my choice of words. Like I was, so if I don't win on my turn, just continue game normally and see where we end up with. So technically I could, get Salvation Swan, start 2 chains at the end of Cisse's turn, and try and win there. But still doesn't really like, I wanted to be like, this is the plan, so we do this. So 0-0-1 at this point. Pod 2 was interesting. An Oswald grinder that's won tournaments. Plays the deck pretty much exclusively. Kefka, who won the last tournament in Seed 4, and Grazilax, a player who I hadn't met before, Seed 3. I'm in Seed 1. I'm feeling good. I know that pretty much it's just the Kefka and the Grazilax that I'm playing against per se, and just see where it goes. This hand, I can't remember what I mulliganed to. Let me think how the game shaped out. I think this game I won. Yeah, it was Kefka had the most nuts start, like Chrome Mox, Mana Vault, Land, something, Ristic Study. Positively though, Grazilax had a Force of Negation. My turn 1 was, I think it was like setup, a strong setup for Aang for the next turn. Like, I remember this vague scenario where it was like Kefka was trying to have the Grazilax counter my Aang cast and stuff. Oh yeah, now I remember. My hand was Cephalid Coliseum, Chromox, Elvish Spirit Guide, Grim Monolith. So what I did was cast Grim Monolith turn 1, and then next turn Elvish Spirit Guide, Glasspool Mimic tapped, 1 floating, cast Aang. As I saw the Force of Negation, that gave me a much better feel for the Grazilax. The chain ended somewhere, like it didn't win outright. I had Volrath's Shapeshifter in my hand, and I think it ended up on something, maybe Preston. I think it was Preston that I ended on. Then turn cycle wheeled, I was worried about Grazilax 2 open mana. Kefka didn't do much. Oswald was, I think they played either Sworn Canonist earlier, and then on my turn, I played the Shapeshifter. It resolved, managed to start an Aang chain, and then with the help of Preston, I won off of that chain. Grazilax had a Submerge in hand, but fortunately I did not have a Forest, so they couldn't play it. So 1-0-1 at this point. I don't have a picture of the third pod. I was number 1 in the in the standings. Second player was a dear friend of mine who was playing Vial Smasher Thrasios Turbo. Third one was another friend of mine playing cEDH, just like a mid-range Marvin Ioreth cEDH. And then another friend of mine on Turbo Kinnan. At this point, it's me on 6 points, my friend on 6 points, the Vial Thrasios player, and then others on 5 points. So I'm suggesting we ID. Looking at the pods, there's like some outcomes where the 5-point players wouldn't make it, but like tiebreakers wise, it would be good because there's two, like this table had the top 3 players, and everyone else agrees to it except Kinnan. We think about it a bit. Kinnan is like that they think they need to win this one to make it. Like they might be IDing themselves out of the top 4. Everybody of us goes like, sure, we play then. I'm in 4th seat. I'm mulliganing. I don't see anything. I really don't see anything. Going down, I don't see anything. And then I see a hand for 3, which is 2 fetch lands and a Lotus Petal. I contemplate whether I want to keep that or whether I want to go to 2. The argument for going down to 2 is seeing LED and a land, Enlightened Tutor and land, but overall, like, the deck has so many mana banks. I wanted to hedge towards like drawing one of them on turn 1 or 2, and then being able to cast Aang on 3. I think I just drew a land and a mirror image, so I really didn't play anything in the game. cEDH starts with a turn 1 Dork and a Lotus Petal. Vial Thrasios plays a Dork, Elves of Deep Shadow. Kinnan plays a tap land, the Shifting Woodland, and passes. I play a fetch land and I pass. cEDH plays Selvala, passes, which is scary, you know. Then Vial Thras plays Dark Ritual into Necropotence, sends 14 cards, sculpts hand, passes. Kinnan plays, I think it was like land, and it wasn't a pop of turn, but regardless. Anyway, then I go to my turn, I just play a land, just pass, and then cEDH plays cEDH, Cultist of the Absolute, wins the game. Vial Thras didn't find interaction in those cards. And Kinnan didn't have anything. So it ends up as a loss, and I'm like, okay, now I'm stressing if I make it to the finals. There were 3 10-point players, so 2 wins and 1 loss, and 3 6-point players, which was me, my friend on Vial Thras, and the Magda player. Due to tiebreakers, though, as my opponent's win or win percent, whatever, was significantly higher when I looked at the end. Like, I was the 4th seed. So our final spot is cEDH. I'm blanking. Oswald and Ral and me. 4th seed. I'm like, okay, that's pretty bad. Well, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start seeing hands and let's see where this goes. cEDH, I'm not afraid of, not that packed with interaction, usually a slower list. Oswald, same principle, usually can't win that fast, doesn't have that much interaction. Mostly it's like creature based, like, you know, portable hole, this kind of stuff, so I'm okay. Either Sworn Canonist, I don't really care that much. Ral is a bad thing, but I can either rival the speed or Oswald can stack the board and we get to leave a turn. So I mulligan and I see a hand which is like, I think it was 2nd 7. Ancient Tomb, Moonsilver Key, Sungrass Prairie. This is already a 3-card turn 2 Aang. Alongside there was Lotus Cobra and Guardian of Girapur, I think, and like a clone or something. So what I do is, turn 1, I play Ancient Tomb and the Moonsilver Key. It was like Dork Pass from Sisei. Oswald had a solid start and then just passed. And Ral had like Mana Vault Pass, something like this. Then turn 2, Oswald... turn 1, Oswald played Chalice of the Void. And I was like, okay, guess I'm not getting my LED after all. And this was alright because this hand was more flexible. Even if I had an LED, I would then have, access to Lotus Cobra. Maybe I could do something. Then there was then Aethersworn Canonist that Oswald tutored. Ral is kind of out of the game, and I go to my turn, and I'm thinking if there's a sequence where I could cast Aang right there. But unfortunately, due to not having a land drop, I would then activate the Ancient Tomb, find something, but I can't really get there. So what I did was crack the Moonsilver Key, find Mana Vault, and I drew Food Chain. So what I did was just play the Guardian of Girapur out, flicker the Mana Vault, and then see what happens. I've been talking through the whole day, so sore throat, pardon me. So I think there was, let's count, 5, 6 mana. So when I played the Mana Vault, I had access to 4 afterwards. So yeah, there was sadly no line available where I'd play a creature and Food Chain. If that was the case, then I could have maybe get to Aang, like... Sorry, I need to... There we go. Get to Aang, but I was 1 mana short. So the Guardian of Girapur was pretty much just a setup, so I have more like a Food Chain creature on the board. Then I think the turns passed. Sisei played Tutored and played Selvala, I think. And Ral played like Defense Grid, and I'm just going like, please, Ral was very like they knew what they were doing. They're a historical player who's played a lot, so it was just their evaluation. Like, because of the Chalice, nobody's interacting at all, and they did have a Deflecting Swat actually in their hand, which they could cast through the Mana Vault. So, or rather with the Mana Vault for Defense Grid tax. So, other than that, they would get to like dictate what to do, and if they drew into removal for the Aethersworn Canonist, then nobody can stop them. I untap, and I'm like, let me draw a land, and I can cast Aang, expect to not, I think at this point I was like, I can pull a win, I can try, and something that I kept my eyes on was hopefully hitting a chain to get Flicker Wisp and Flicker Wisp away the Aethersworn Canonist, and then get to play Food Chain, and then win from there. Well, I did not draw a land. I just played the Food Chain out. I passed turn. I think Sisei played like Sisei, and we're starting to get a little worried about Oswald, but nobody could really do anything to that. Turn cycle passes. The board is a little stacked out. Oswald is doing some Oswald things, but not really popping off yet. And I untap. I think I found Crystal Vein now, or maybe it was 1 turn later. Regardless, I exile the Guardian of Girapur to Food Chain, and I cast Aang as my only non-artifact spell. I start a chain, which starts with, I think, like Restoration Angel. Maybe it was probably like a clone, Restoration Angel, and then Flicker Wisp. I could have found just like clones to keep cloning, but because of the defense grid, I was like, I wanted to try to win there. I didn't want to give an extra untap for the Oswald and for the Sisei. So what I did was flicker Wisp and try to exile the Aethersworn Canonist. Unfortunately, the Ral did have the deflecting swat and the tax, and they directed it to their Mana Vault. Turn cycle passes, and then one moment. Oh, my throat is dying. I'll try to keep this short and sweet. It seems like I shouldn't be talking anymore. So nobody's doing anything. Oswald is advancing their game by activations. And I got the deflecting swat out. Ral takes a turn, doesn't do anything, I untap. And I'm like, please, for the love of God, like, I have clones in my hand. I play a clone as my only spell. I hadn't found Phyrexian Metamorph. There was no other things like that. I hit the chain. I get some creatures out, Extraction Specialist, Gigantoplasm. I set up Gigantoplasm, things are looking good. Now I have like Restoration Angels set up and also a legendary creature in my grave. I'm like, please, probabilities-wise, this is already nearing something that should happen. And then I see Planar Guide, and I'm like, oh my lord, I got this. Like, I have my lands untapped, I have Mana Vault untapped, like I have mana to activate it. I take Planar Guide, I have Extraction Specialist out, Restoration Angel out, and Aang out, and clones. So I get to produce at least 3 triggers from this. I activate it. Sisei starts already scooping because they play with me locally, they know how this goes. I know how this goes, so I'm just doing this fast. I'm like, hell yeah. For a brief moment there, I think, like, should I play something now that the Aethersworn Canonist is out, but I don't have mana? Later on, when I thought about it, I was like, maybe I should have exiled some of the couple, like 2 clones that I had out for some creature mana and played a creature, but honestly, like, the creatures in my hand were like Redemption Choir, which would have been relevant later, and just clones. So I was like, I can't really do that much with those. Obviously, I didn't think it like completely through. It's been a long day, and I'm like, dude, 3 chains. Like, of course I'm winning. Like, there's no question about it. Especially since I knew what I had already seen. Like, we're nearing the point where I should be finding like Prest and these kind of things. Anyway, I go to my end step, the creatures return, I order the triggers pretty nicely and pretty correctly, like Extraction Specialist targeting the Shapeshifter first, Restoration Angel targeting the Aang, and then Aang trigger on the stack. So I have 3 triggers. First one, I think I find Starfield Vocalist. Second trigger, I find something that lets me do 2 more triggers. I think it wasn't anything that would have let me copy Restoration Angel to flicker Extraction Specialist and Aang, but still, like, I get 2 more triggers, and I'm like, dude, I did it. Like, I got this, and this is what I wanted to do. I will make it to the Nationals, because I've missed a couple tournaments from this season. I was like, the winners get there, so I was like ecstatic. I get to go there. I get to compete for the European championship slots, and I did it with my brew, my own brew, like, which started off as a net decked version that was like 50 cards apart or something, and I just felt like those builds were not that good, and I started evolving it. I started building my own thing, and now I get to reap the reward for it. And I get to enjoy this. And then I have the 3 triggers on the stack. First trigger, LED for lands, no hit. I'm a little worried, but I'm like, yeah, I have 2 more triggers. If quite literally I hit anything, then I can, copy Restoration Angel. I flicker 2 creatures. uh, I have bazillion amount of triggers I can produce, like no problem. Then second trigger, I only see Devoted Druid, and I'm like, no, no, like, pardon my English, but like, no fucking way. Like, this is unreal. And I'm still like, okay, keep it calm. I'll look at the last trigger, one card at a time. I will be seeing a clone. Chain continuer, don't sweat it. And everyone around me, or around us, are looking like one player was specifically wanted to see how this deck functions. They hadn't seen. Another player was like, wait, what's Oscar playing today? Like, how didn't they see this? I usually play different decks. I've played a lot of decks. I've won 10 tournaments with different decks, some like on duplicates, but you know, I cook stuff, I play different decks. So this was something that was fun to showcase. And what a way would it be with the Planar guide? Another newer tool and something that I've been super excited about, and I'm telling like it's really good in the deck. And then the last trigger, I see nothing else but the Preston, and there's either Sworn Canonist out, I'm in my end step, I can't do anything. I'm like, okay, if one trigger has approximately like 10-ish% of whiffing, this means that this was 0.1 times 0.1 times 0.1. So 1 in 1,000. And I'm like, in the finals, 4th seed, I've had to fight through interaction and stacks. What on earth is happening? Like, I got to do this and now I didn't. Cisse had scoop because, 999 times out of the 1,000, it should win. So with 3 triggers, so they're not around anymore. Oswald untaps, and then they start talking with the Ral, like, how do we stop this? And then Oswald shows that, like, I have this card, and, like, probably silence. Like, I was thinking it has to be that. Like, removal wouldn't really help, but probs a silence, and then they're trying to silence me on my upkeep. They get rid of the defense grid together. Ral doesn't do anything on their turn. I untap. I get silenced. I can't play anything. I have to pass my turn. Oswald wins on their turn with, I think, exact mana, with like Bilibala Marvin, Mage Right Stone stuff. Honestly, I was still am, but feelings come and go. But still, this just feels unfortunately like a bad beats kind of a situation where it like I know I've done so many calculations. I know how many times if we simulated this scenario, how often it would win. And obviously I think about, okay, what slight optimizations could have I done if I played the Redemption Choir earlier, if I had done that. But still at the times, like when I played the clone, I wanted to specifically clone Restoration Angel, so I have a clone instead of the Redemption Choir. If I find Gigantoplasm, which I hadn't yet seen, and I hadn't yet seen Brennard or Jackdaw, so I was like setting up towards a better reset these clones to be Gigantoplasms kind of a thing. And yeah, if I had the Redemption Choir out, attack trigger, sure, I could have brought something out, but I think it speaks for itself enough that whiffing 3 triggers and I have a doubler out is something that quite literally never happens. So, as you can see in the photo, this was at the end of the Planar guide turn, and yeah, that happened, and I did not win the tournament, and it sucks. Now I need to try again in the last one of the season, and hopefully I get to make it to the nationals. Currently I'm in the ladder like 20th, and this is because I've missed 2 tournaments out of the 4 that have been organized currently. Season 1 I was the top seed with multiple wins. Season 2 I was the top seed. Now season 3, missed the 2 tournaments, and it's not looking too good. If I do okay in the next one, then maybe I can make it's the top 16 of the participants. But still, I'd be lying if I said that this just doesn't feel bad. Like, this is something that probabilities wise just doesn't happen. And I guess that's the only way to put it. The positive side, though, is that through a day with awful starts, mulligan to 3, a turn 1 Torpor Orb, as well as stuff like Either Sworn Canonist, which actually hindered me in this case because of food chain. Like, I couldn't eat my creatures, recast stuff, you get the idea. And also like a deflecting SWAT. Like there were a lot of things that kind of go against you that would normally be like when people meme about these kind of decks, which is like a shrug, just counter the creature, like just counter the Etali, just counter the Gairuda, blah blah blah. And these all of these scenarios, like these things existed, but still, notably just the 3-round tournament plus finals, so 4 games total. Obviously there's variance, but you get the idea. But still made more than the money for the entry. Overall, it was an awesome day. It was a fun day, even though the conclusion was unfortunately kind of bitter. But, aren't Jesus taketh, aren't Jesus giveth. So now we just manifest the 999 scenario energy instead of this. But yeah. But I did Lotus Cobra. I didn't get to see that much in action. Like this specific last game, it could have been beneficial, but overall, like the set of cards, just I like the deck. I think the deck is very good. I was brought good energy by the playmat, by the t-shirt. I made some nice trades, and always just love seeing my friends. So obviously it was a great day regardless, and making top 4 is still great. So I'm obviously happy about that, but still my goal for the year is to win a tournament with Aang, because this is something that I've been working so hard on. So hopefully it happens, but we'll have to see. But I guess that's pretty much it for this tournament recap. This one was not like I didn't have too much written information, like what hands I kept, these kind of things, but just to give a feel on what were the major pivotal points that happened in the games and stuff like that. I did not miss Katara. Like, usually when you get the chains going, you win often enough already. I think the card is hard to cast. Forager, like the openers were fine. I think the biggest variance was the 3rd game with the mulligan to 3, 4th seed, which is obviously a little sad, but like sometimes that happens. I did not see any LEDs in the tournament, not any Enlightened Tutors, no Soul Rings, no Mana Vaults. Like, this was a very, I would say, unconventional openers that still fulfilled their duty. The Grim Monolith one was the exception, though. But other rounds, like, interesting cards and interesting synergies. But takeaways for myself, if I want to like implement something that I could pay more attention to, I guess the Planar guide turn just maybe I could have paused for 1 second. Maybe I could have thought, should I pop this in my end step to have Oswald's things enter at their end step and mine as well? This is something to consider. Notably, though, if the Sisei was at the table, then that wouldn't have made a difference. But like just food for thought, like negate the summoning sickness, or rather like force them to have summoning sickness. But also the other thing was like, I'd rather not have anyone else untap at all, like anything. If I saw a win there, which is 3 chains, usually gets there, so like there was no interaction, so I knew the coast was clear. But that one, and just like when I made the priority list, like Redemption Choir, I put really high because it's both a chain continuer and it also restarts a chain. Like, sure, the way this game panned out means that earlier, if I had played that one, that would have been better. During the Planar Guide turn, if I ate some of my clones and played it out just as a vanilla, then assuming I whiff this exact way I did, I would have had a way to play through the silence that was pointed at me. Now, whether that's something that honestly affected the win percentages, stuff like that, that one is honestly pretty much irrelevant. Maybe that line was something that I could have considered, but you know, when you see a win on the board and you just know that you win, I don't think it requires that much additional thinking, but seems like still I could play towards what is the only thing that causes me to lose here. What is that thing? And then maybe I could have thought, like, understood myself that play this as a security. If you hit some combination of creatures that don't let you win outright, like, yeah. Even though like those outs are equally, like building that board is equally small, and Oswald's last card being a silence and all that jazz, but it is what it is. I don't want this to be too miserable, like overall. I hope all of you like understand what I feel. I hope you all understand that sometimes probabilities can be a bit brutal, but in this case, knowing how the deck is built, knowing what the probabilities are, this just does not happen, honestly. So it felt really surreal to me and shocking. I was like, no way. Did I just witness that? But keeping it on the positive note, deck functioned well, aside from maybe the last moment's optimizations. If I wanted to play towards the ultimate 1 in 1,000, 1 in 3,000, 1 in 5,000 fail odds, whatever it was, maybe there was something to do. But Planar Guide, 3 triggers, that should do it. Anyway, deck was good. I played good. I mulliganed good. Deck's good. I guess that's what I want to end on. I'll be continuing playing and brewing this. I think this deck has a lot of potential. Next up, we have the Strixhaven spoilers, so we'll have to keep an eye out on if we find anything interesting there. But thank you for... oh yeah, I just realized that I was scrolling through this and talking. But yeah, that's it for this tournament. Hopefully next tournament in April goes equally well, and we can trim those bad beats out and cash in the victory next time. We'll have to see. But thanks for watching. This was supposed to be a short video, but it was an hour, so enjoy.